would be cool to see some footage generally when I was younger.
Kevin De Bruyne voor de 4-2.
Sit down, take one.
Well, starting with the KDB Cup, you had my local team, where I started when I was 4 years old. They were having this idea of creating an international tournament for youth players, and then being the player that I am today, they reached out to my father and thinking like, do you want to work together, and do you think this is a good idea and manageable? The talent that has come through has been amazing. You know, I've played with players and trained with them who played at my tournament, so it's a little bit of a weird experience. Theo can create, I think, a platform for young players, for the coaches, to see how they do well in this tournament. But then also I think supporters, parents, family members, they probably want to see footage of how their son or the grandson or whoever it is in the family can view their games. If you can live stream the games, different ball game. You can watch all over the world, and maybe the bigger it gets or the more interesting it gets for future editions. Having the footage for the coaches and players is important anyway. I think they will do their analysis anyway, because you know I've been training for my coaching diploma and I'm training under 14, so I know the detail that goes into these players, and I know what they need to do. So I think in a tournament of that, I think they would probably come with their own camera guys anyway, so I think it makes life much easier for them, and so I think it's a no-brainer for everybody, to be fair. If I would be a coach at a local team or youth team, I obviously would use it because it helps. I think when you create the exercises or tactical whatever and your team picks up on it, then you get that kind of satisfaction of, you know, you explained it rightly, they're picking up what you wanted to achieve. And that's the reason of being a coach, I guess. So I think this is the most rewarding it can get for a coach. Sometimes it's important to understand what you did well, what you didn't do well as a young player, but sometimes don't take it also too hard, because I think young players at that age, they're probably mentally still a little bit fragile, so it can boost their confidence, but it can also go the opposite way. And I think a young player, you always have to push them to still let them do what they think is good, because they need to understand also these situations and make mistakes to get better, because out of these mistakes you're gonna improve your whatever, your mental, your physical, or in your head ideas. So I think it's sometimes a very fragile line where you have to maintain, but you know, I think if you want to help the player, that's fine, but make sure that he's still okay with playing football. And you know, football is a game of mistakes. Who makes the least mistakes, the other team probably will lose, but you know, it's also part of it, and it's going to happen anyway. Being a midfielder, you know, video could help you analyze afterwards, where are the spaces, you know, where are the spaces. If people press you in one way, what do you need to do as a player? You more anticipate already on what other players are doing. That's basically the game, you know. Not a lot of people think about that, but you know, if you know what the other team is doing, you will have an advantage because you know what they do. And I think in that way, it's a very important attribute to have. Yeah, basically you start with playing the game, I would say, or playing more games. And after, you can analyze, you need a video to analyze what you're doing well and what you're doing wrong. Obviously, you can figure that out in the game also a little bit, but obviously after video, I think afterwards, if you look from outside, you understand easier where the space is going to be. You know, on the pitch, you know, when people are in the stadium, they say, oh, look how much space. You know, on a pitch is a different view. You know, you're not that high up. You're between 22 players running around like chickens sometimes. So sometimes you need the video to understand there's actually more space or more time, because time is also a very important word than in the game than you actually think, because everything goes 100 miles an hour at that time. Having space is mostly if the other team defends in a certain way, where is the space going to be? Where am I as a midfield player going to end up to have the most amount of space, the most amount of time to create opportunities for my teammates? So, you know, if people imagine the attackers and the midfielders press, we know there's going to be space between the defensive line and the midfield line. If they press all to one side, you know, the other side is going to have space. So that's why I define space. Okay, that changes all the time, but you know, I always try to be in a little pocket of 3-4 players and just in the middle. So it's not about moving, it's about arriving or being in the right time and in the right speed. You can use video individually or as a team. I've been always somebody who's not really looked at my individual stuff, because it's probably more bad stuff than good stuff in there. Obviously, when you play the game and you go on social media, everybody takes that clip of something good, but you know, it doesn't really matter or bother for me. But I think now, if you play professional football, everything is in line with the philosophy of the coach and that way of playing. So everybody needs to know offensively, how does it work? Defensively, how do you press? How do you defend back deep? You know, so there's a lot of different phases that you train, but then obviously, you know, you get sometimes, it's not daily, but I would say every other day you will have a little meeting, and it doesn't have to be a lot of clips. It's just little short clips to see where do we need to be, how do we need to make the movements. So everything is very team orientated at a professional level. But I think from youth level, you go more individually, and that grows more into a team, because then it's more important what the team does. We always look a little bit at the opposition, also more team orientated. How do they press? In what formation do they press? Where are the spaces going to be if we attack then with the ball? For 90% of the time, we play teams that we know, we watch on TV. We've played them maybe 10, 15 times already, so you pretty know already a little bit how they play. I think for new players, sometimes other players look individually, wingers maybe or defenders, but I think I'm pretty clear already at understanding how other teams play, so maybe that's an advantage for me. I don't have to look too many things, to be honest. The only thing that I can remember is obviously when I was playing in the youth, we had like another player, his grandpa was always filming with his camera, and after the season he would give like cassettes with videotape on it, but maybe my parents still have them, I'm not quite sure, but yeah, I think cassettes been out of it for a little bit now. I think it would be cool to see some footage like more generally when I was younger. I think I was lucky that parent filmed it. You know, there's it's still cool to see. I think there's some YouTube videos also somewhere, but obviously it's a couple of minutes of probably what I've done in my whole entire youth career. So I think it would be cool to see probably later when I'm done with football. This is how I was when I was younger, and you know, see how I grow. But I also take it as a, you know, that was how life was then. So I'm okay with that. But I think sometimes maybe it would be nice for my kids to see it. That would be cool. But yeah, luckily I have a little bit of stuff. You can do basically everything you want with analyzing, following this type of players, and you know, like you can do youth players to professional, like everybody can join in if they want to. So I think the market is whatever you want it to be.